Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON4 News at 5.
Tonight at 5, House lawmakers are moving forward with impeachment next week if President Trump refuses to step down.
This says the nation remains in a public health crisis, and COVID cases are raging out of control. Since just Monday, the U.S. has recorded 13,500 deaths. That is more than Pearl Harbor, D-Day, 9/11, and the 1906 San Francisco earthquake combined. Thank you for joining us here on KRON4 News at 5, everybody. I'm Grant Lotus.
And I'm Vicki Liviakis. Tonight, President Trump has also been officially banned from the social media platform Twitter. We're going to have a live interview on the impact of that move in just a few minutes.
First, though, we want to focus on the state's regional stay-at-home order, and that order was put in place for the Bay Area region 3 weeks ago now. State officials now confirming that order will remain in place. KRON4's Dan Kerman joining us live from San Francisco with more on this. Dan?
Well, you know, a lot of us had thought that this order had to be officially extended for it to remain in effect. We were told 3 weeks, but in fact, health officers tell me that's really not how it worked. After 3 weeks, the order could have been lifted if ICU capacity was back at 15% or above. So we all know the Bay Area region has been hammered by COVID-19, and in fact, for this region, the 11 counties in the Bay Area that the state has put together, ICU capacity currently at 3%. And as a result, that means that this stay-at-home order will remain in effect and those businesses impacted by it will remain closed.
So we know we'll be in this same situation for at least another week. But, you know, if we project ahead, knowing what's happening with the disease and seeing what's happening with our hospitals, I'll be very surprised if we reopen anytime within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I honestly think we're looking at the end of January before Bay Area ICU bed availability will be good enough to allow us to stop the stay-home order.
Solano County's health officer says the Bay Area is getting hammered by the coronavirus.
Obviously, we're having so much disease because people weren't paying attention to that order during the holiday season. Our hope is that people have gotten it out of their systems to get together with family and friends, that they are, since this past weekend, doing things correctly. And if we can do it for a few weeks, then we can bring this outbreak under control. We can bring the numbers of cases down substantially and protect our hospitals and our ICU beds.
Now, state officials are going to be reviewing the numbers, looking at projections to when they think possibly the Bay Area will be able to get back to a 15% ICU capacity. They're going to have some announcements coming up next week, but at this point, Bay Area nowhere close to getting out of this stay-at-home order with ICU capacity at 3%. Live in San Francisco, Dan Kerman, KRON4 News.
Thank you, Dan. Tonight, ICU capacity in California continues to fall as the U.S. continues to set records for the number of people dying tragically from this virus. Here's a look at the latest numbers. In the Bay Area, our ICU capacity has fallen to just 3%. That is the lowest it's been since the pandemic started. Northern California continues to have the highest level of ICU beds, more than 27%. The greater Sacramento region, which includes Tahoe, saw a decrease in availability. It's down to about 6.5% of ICU beds available there. And the San Joaquin, Central Valley, and Southern California regions are still at 0% availability.
All right, now to the South Bay, where health officials are reporting progress in vaccinating healthcare workers and other high-risk groups. Roughly
1/3 of those eligible for it have received the vaccine, and healthcare providers have joined the effort. KRON4's Rob Flattabo has more on this. He's live in San Jose tonight. Hi, Rob.
Hello, Grant. Yeah, you know, the bad news, relatively speaking, is that the COVID infection is still out of control here in the South Bay. The good news, though, is that the number of people being vaccinated here at clinics like this one is on the increase. Here's more. At clinics like this one on Tully Road in San Jose and at hospitals and healthcare systems across the South Bay, more than 47,000 healthcare workers have received their first doses of COVID-19 vaccine so far. Among them is Willow Glen Family Dentistry's Amy Luna.
With our patients, we want to make sure that they're they feel safe and comfortable. So having the shot and being able to provide that comfort is a good sense to ensuring that all of our team is safe as well.
Amid the state's expanded eligibility for vaccinations to all healthcare personnel under Phase 1A, the county is averaging 1,500 vaccinations per day now and is expected to be at least twice that by next week as more vaccination sites come online.
Anyone who falls in Phase 1A, you can go to your healthcare provider and get a vaccine.
We've heard that the federal government under the new administration is going to push out a lot more vaccine. The plan is to open many more mass vac sites.
There are roughly 140,000 healthcare workers in the county. Under Phase 1A, the first tier is focused on hospital staff, long-term care facilities, medical first responders, and in-home healthcare providers. Eligible because he is caring for his 93-year-old father is Nin Phillip.
I don't want to be a society liability to infect anyone. And of course, I don't want to have brain damage or lung scar. So when I'm qualified to take the shot, I'm very happy to take it.
Now, as for the bad news, Santa Clara County is now reporting an average of 1,200 new COVID cases every day. And the number of people who have died since the pandemic began is now at 800. That's 800. Live in San Jose, Rob Flattabo, KRON4 News.
Thank you, Rob. Our other big story tonight, momentum is building to impeach Donald Trump at lightning speed. Articles of impeachment could be voted on as early as Monday.
Democrats are demanding immediate action to ensure President Trump cannot add to the deep damage he has already inflicted or even ignite perhaps a nuclear war. In his final days in office, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is demanding that President Trump resign, and if he doesn't, she says Congress will take action. If Trump were to be impeached by the House and convicted by the Senate, they need 2/3 of the vote. He might also be prevented from running again for the presidency in 2024 or prevented from ever holding public office again. He would be the only president to be impeached twice. And here's a look at all of the Bay Area representatives who say they are in favor of impeachment. So far, no one has told us they are against the idea. And U.S. Senator Lisa Murkowski says she wants the president to resign. She becomes the first Republican in the Senate to say so publicly. Murkowski telling the Anchorage Daily News, quote, "He's caused enough damage. He needs to get out. He needs to do the good thing, but I don't think he's capable of doing a good thing." The Alaska senator looking big picture now, adding, quote, "If the Republican Party has become nothing more than the party of Trump, I sincerely question whether this is the party for me." And tonight, House Minority Leader from California, Kevin McCarthy, says he is opposing the idea of impeaching the president. The Republican releasing a statement that reads in part, "Impeaching the president with just 12 days left will only divide our country more. I've reached out to President-elect Biden today and plan to speak to him about how we must work together to lower the temperature and unite the country to solve America's challenges."
And new developments today out of Washington as lawmakers continue to grapple with the fallout of Wednesday's raid on the Capitol. Today, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says that she spoke to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff about preventing President Trump from initiating military actions or a nuclear strike. In a statement, she says that the situation is, quote, this, quote, unhinged president could not be more dangerous. And as we mentioned at the top of the hour, late today, Twitter suspended President Trump's account permanently. The San Francisco-based company giving a detailed explanation, which you can find on KRON4.com. And that includes...
Yeah, it includes chatter that's been on and off Twitter, according to the company, about more violence at the U.S. Capitol that's planned and at state Capitol buildings coming up January 17th. And joining us now live for some expert analysis is Ian Sherr, editor-at-large at CNET. Ian, thanks for your time tonight. This is the first president to use Twitter in such a way. A lot of people have been asking the company to suspend his account for years now. His supporters, though, they drink up his tweets like they're water on a desert. Did you ever think that we would see the day that a company like Twitter would suspend the president's account permanently?
If I was a betting man, I would have said it would happen
on January 20th at 12:01 p.m. when he is no longer president. Citizen Trump very clearly was going to have his account taken away from him because pretty much everything that he has tweeted, he can't go a week without violating Twitter's terms of service in some way. And I have been a part of a very large group of people who have been critical of Twitter for allowing this to continue. One of the hardest things about watching this whole last 4 years is knowing that some 85+ million people were getting direct messages that were filled with vitriol and ruining people's lives, conspiracy theory. It's just crazy what's been going on. And Twitter making this move while he's still president changes the dynamic of how they've been handling this. Until now, they said, well, if you're a world leader, you basically get to do whatever you want on Twitter. Clearly, that is changing.
Well, clearly it is. He's had this very potent megaphone, for lack of a better term. So where does he go now? I mean, where Parler, TikTok? Or is he muted?
One of the things that I've done a lot of research on, although I would pay to watch President Trump do a TikTok dance, but I think that there's been a ton of research around how extremists are treated on other platforms when they get kicked off of main ones. And the thing we've learned is that when huge groups of extremists get banned from a place like Reddit or from Facebook, they have a much harder time reconstituting on smaller social networks. And that makes sense, right? That everyone pretty much and their mother is on Facebook and Twitter. You get further down the chain, there aren't that many people. It's harder to bring in new people and to recruit them. So I think even if he were to go on Gab or Parler or any of these other websites that really ask people who are not allowed on Facebook and Twitter, they say, hey, come to us. I think even if he ends up there, he's not going to have the type of reach that he did on Twitter.
What do you say to the folks who are critical of this decision, who say you have probably just a couple executives at these major social media companies who have all this power to silence people and they don't like it?
I say that the world can live without Donald Trump's Twitter account. There are a lot of free expression debates that we need to have about how the internet works. But I am fine with social media not having neo-Nazis. I am fine with the extremists being kicked off. We don't need QAnon for Twitter to work. A lot of these things are just not necessary. And after the president used Twitter as a loaded gun to shoot off a huge group of people at the Capitol, we don't need that either. We have passed the line where we need to debate this at this point.
Yeah, we did not really hammer home the point, Ian, that what precipitated this was new information that further violence would be happening on the 20th. So I felt the need to actually accentuate that because obviously some decisions had to be made so that nothing further could happen.
Absolutely. There is definitely a lot of chatter online already about the 17th and the 19th and the 20th. So it's scary. And I think that the good news is that the government seems to have woken up, as have Facebook and Twitter and everyone else, to the fact that people are not mouthing off on social networks. They are dangerous and things need to change.
Ian Scher, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, editor-at-large at CNET. Coming up, our impeachment coverage continues, why lawmakers say it is important to convict even after the president leaves office.
And some of President Trump's supporters from the Bay Area, they were in D.C. during Wednesday's riot. What they have to say about the situation now. And the FDA's warning that a COVID test result from a popular company could provide a false result. What you need to know there.